All right, here, do me a favor. Everybody take a deep breath. Come on, I know you're loving it. Let it out. Take a deep breath again. And let it out. Okay, now I'm on page 23 of your workbook. We're moving right along, guys. So now we're going to talk about waves, intervals, and segments. This sounds like a perfect time for me to have a coffee break. All right, let's see. We got that on the screen. Yep. Okay, now waves, intervals, and segments. So we've already started talking about it, but let's just kind of run through this quickly because we've covered pretty much all of this. So in an EKG, we're going to start at rest, and then we have a P wave. Then we have a PR segment. Then we have a Q. Then we have a R. Then we have an S. In fact, let's zoom in on that for you. Let's do that over. Everything's at rest. Then the P wave, the PR segment, the Q, the R, the S, ST segment, T wave, pause, U wave. Okay? P wave. Well, let's start. We're going to start at rest again. We have rest, atrial depolarization, atrial contraction, depolarization of the septum, depolarization of the anterior wall, depolarization of the posterior wall, ventricular contraction, ventricular repolarization, automaticity. Okay? Now, the P wave is this portion. Represents atrial depolarization. Electrolyte is calcium. Let's see, do I have that part? Oh, let's go ahead and put that in. All right, so P wave. What does it represent? P wave represents atrial depolarization. Electrolyte is calcium. What phase is that? Depolarization is going to be phase 0. Okay? Let's go to PR segment. Next part on your workbook is PR segment. PR segment is here. Oh, by the way, the P wave should take place. The P wave should be upright and rounded, and it should take place within 2 little boxes worth of time. Okay? PR segment should also take place within 1 to 2 little boxes worth of time. It's really small. PR segment represents atrial contraction. Electrolyte is calcium. Okay? The PR interval should take place within 1 big box worth of time or less than 0.2 seconds. PR interval represents atrial depolarization, atrial contraction. Electrolyte, calcium. All right? Let's go to QRS. So the QRS, let's change that color. The entire QRS represents ventricular depolarization, electrolyte, sodium. But the Q, we have a Q, then we have the R, and we have the S. The Q, we said this already, represents what? What part? Beat me to it. All right, you got it. The Q represents the ventricular septum. Okay, the R represents the anterior wall, and the S represents the posterior wall. Okay, there again, it's all ventricular depolarization due to sodium. Now let's go to the ST segment. ST segment, let's change that. ST segment here, well, let's do that again. ST segment is just this portion. ST segment represents ventricular contraction. Electrolyte, calcium. The T wave here represents ventricular repolarization, electrolyte, potassium. Potassium leaking out. Okay? And then the U wave here is automaticity, activation of the sodium calcium exchanger. That's the entire EKG. Okay? Now, the QRS duration, this entire, let's put that in the red. This entire QRS duration should be within 3 little boxes worth of time, or less than or equal to 0.12 seconds. This is also one that's very important to know, okay? Because if the ventricle takes longer to depolarize, there again, it's going to take longer for the ventricles to do anything, and so they're not actually contracting to send blood out. Now, don't confuse contraction and depolarization. Those are separate situations. Depolarization is an electrical situation. Contraction is a mechanical situation, okay? One of them deals with electricity, one deals with the pump. Yes, they're all related, but they're two separate situations, okay? Now, the QRS, if it's prolonged, for instance, if what we have as a wide QRS, that's one of the things we look for instance, in the setting of a bundle branch block. One of the criteria that's necessary to diagnose a bundle branch block is a wide QRS, okay? And we're going to come to that. I promise you, guys, we're covering every part of this. There won't be any stones unturned when it comes to this EKG Mastery Challenge. That's why it's called the EKG Mastery Challenge, okay? Let's keep going. Let's see, QRS, we said that. And then the QT interval needs to be within 2 big boxes worth of time. So that's going to be 0.2 and 0.2. So it's really 2 big boxes and 1 little box, but I want you to say less than or equal to 0.4 seconds. It's really 0.44, okay? And yeah, so go ahead and if you want, you can just take a picture of this if you need to really quickly. All right, and we'll just go ahead and keep going. So here's a spot for you to be able to do this. I want you to actually draw out, for instance, draw out an entire cycle. And then I want you to draw each wave separately like I have. Draw out the P wave, the PR segment, the PR interval, okay? And then fill in, for instance, what electrolyte is involved and what phase of the cardiac cycle is it? Is it phase 0? Is it phase 3? Is it phase 1 or phase 2? So forth, okay? So here's another one that's already labeled for you, so you can use this one because it's color-coded if you'd like to. It's also color-coded by the electrolytes.